All right, we will get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Julie Noble, and this is the first public meeting for the launch of Kingston Organics Phase 2. If you're here attending on Zoom today, you have been muted and your video will be off, but if you do have any questions or comments, feel free to type them in the Q&A, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. This meeting is being recorded, and it will be posted on this city's Engage Kingston page at the completion of today. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Julie Noble. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator, and I also serve as the Recycling Coordinator for the City of Kingston. And today we're going to go over the new information about Kingston Organics Phase 2, and I will also be giving an overview of how things are going so far in the first phase that we launched, which we're calling Phase 1. This all started with funding from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation's Climate Smart Communities program. And we started with an organics diversion study collaborating with Hudson Valley Regional Council back in 2019. We did a 4-year diversion study where we looked at things like surveying the community, doing waste audits and evaluations of our municipal buildings and events, gathering stakeholder feedback. We looked at case studies from other municipalities. We evaluated the greenhouse gas emissions impacts and cost-benefit analysis and code and funding opportunities for looking at diverting food scraps from our solid waste stream in the city. Just to provide you some context, the Department of Public Works is the entity that manages our solid waste hauling for the City of Kingston. So we do not have a private hauler. We have the City Department of Public Works, which manages our solid waste recycling, yard waste collection, and that is done as part of our city services. We had identified in our 2030 Climate Action Plan that we wanted to establish an organic waste collection program and implementation and recommend the implementation of the plan that was completed. And we have always been a leader here in the City of Kingston, both under the current administration and previous administrations, in moving forward environmental initiatives. Being the highest certified climate smart community in the state, this is important to us to continue to move on with this trajectory. Also, some context about our solid waste. We currently produce about 7,760 tons of refuse in the City of Kingston in every given year. That refuse is driven from the City of Kingston 5 miles by our trucks to the Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency, which is located on Flatbush Road in the City of Kingston. And they then take it and drive it 240 miles out to Seneca Meadows landfill, which is in central New York. So round trip, about 55 or 60 large trucks are bringing trash each day from Ulster County to Seneca Meadows landfill, creating an incredible amount of greenhouse gas emissions. It costs the City of Kingston about $800,000 every year to pay for this tipping. So tipping means when we bring the waste to Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency, and they charge us for the waste disposal. That's how much we pay. At an extreme amount of greenhouse gas emissions levels, which, as a last note, was 2008 metric tons of CO2 equivalent per year, which is an incredible amount of greenhouse gas emissions. So what did the diversion plan say? It did say, institute a plan, institute a program. Start doing a phased approach to gather food scraps out of the waste stream through something called sourced separation, to use an existing facility because the plan determined that we ourselves, the City of Kingston, did not have the space, the capacity, the knowledge, the manpower to be able to process the food scraps on our own into compost. So we should use an existing facility, that we should update the municipal code to reflect the program implementation. In doing that, this process, we should be distributing bins, having a dedicated recycling coordinator, and continue to apply for future funding. I'm happy to say that we have done all of these things, and we are in the process of doing all of these things. We have started instituting the program. We're using an existing facility. We're evaluating our code for updates. Folks are going to be getting bins. I'm the dedicated recycling coordinator, and funding from DEC, a second round, has paid for this next phase. So let's look back at phase one, which hopefully many of you are participating in. Phase one, Kingston Organics, has been a drop-off program that started in July of 2023. It was launched in the summer, and folks could register, and still can, for a free voluntary drop-off program only to city residents, using your own container to going to your drop-off sites. Currently, and from the beginning and still currently, there are 11 secure community sites around the city of Kingston, so they're pretty equally spread out around the city in terms of locations. Most of them are in parks, if not all of them are in parks, and they're all in public spaces. At those locations, there is a container which is locked and has two 64-gallon totes inside of it, and each person that registers is given a code that is usable across lots of different spaces, all the different locations with the same code. And so this is what those sites look like. At the same time, we also wanted to walk the walk, so we launched Kingston Organics Phase 1 in 11 of our municipal buildings. We wanted to be sure that we were taking our own house into consideration. So the building I'm in right now, the Andy Murphy Center, City Hall, all the different main buildings that we have in the city where people either are working or visiting, have collection. The way that this process has been working is that residents generate food scraps. They drop off their food scraps without bags to the designated sites, and that can be done 24 hours a day. Department of Public Works drives around on Fridays, which is the current day that we do not do trash collection. We currently do 4 days of trash collection, Monday through Thursday. And on the 5th day, Friday, when the trucks had been driving around collecting yard waste, they still are doing yard waste, and now they're doing food scraps from those 20-some sites. They then drive that food out to Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency, 5 miles away, the same place where we bring our recycling and our trash. At that facility, the food scraps are mixed together with woody material, primarily wood chips, and they are placed in aerated static piles. So they have long rows, aerated static rows, where there is air blown up from underneath the piles that is warm air, and the combination of the warmth and the air movement aids in the decomposition of the material, and all of that decomposes after just a few months, and then it is screened and bagged and sold by Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency from their site. To date, our organics collection with the drop-off sites, we've now been doing this for 2.5 years. You can see here a chart of what the collection looks like. It varies over the course of the year a little bit, but it basically has ups and downs. So what do the numbers look like? We've been collecting for 122 weeks. We have 627 families, which consist of 1,252 people. This is as of yesterday. There could be more. We gather about 0.68 tons of garbage per week, and so far have diverted, source separated, 83.35 tons of food scraps. We are doing so at a tipping rate of $20 per ton versus the standard municipal solid waste rate of $135 per ton. So right now, our food scraps disposal at Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency is saving us $115 per ton for every ton of food that we divert and extract out of our waste stream. It takes the laborers 27 miles to drive around the city doing this with one driver and one laborer. They use 6.46 gallons of diesel in that run, and it takes them 3.79 hours to do so. So far we're proud to say that we've had 100% compliance with no contamination. No loads at all in 2.5 years have been rejected from Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency. I've had 0 animals get into these containers, and 0 complaints from neighbors. And you'll notice a little asterisk here on my slides, asterisk on 0 animals noted, because as I'm saying this, if you're familiar with this container at Kingston Point, there's a mouse that's getting into the edge of it, but he hasn't gotten in yet. So I count that as 0. And the 0 complaints from neighbors with the asterisk is because before we started launching, before we even started collecting food or even putting the containers out, we've got 2 complaints from neighbors saying this is going to be terrible, and 0 complaints since we've actually started. And by the way, people that are not in Kingston are also interested. I've had 56 non-residents attempt to sign up. They've been told no, unfortunately, only city residents can participate. So after evaluating phase 1 for 2.5 years, and more than just evaluating, it's taken us a long time to understand and to outline and strategize on what residential collection will look like. And it's taken us a while because we're not able to look to our neighboring communities and say, you know, Saugerties is doing it, or Ulster is doing it, or really many communities, most communities are not doing this, but we want to. And so we had to design a program on our own in collaboration with Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency and find funding so that we didn't affect the taxpayer dollars in this process. And I am proud to say that we have now launched registration for Kingston Organics phase 2. Phase 2 is curbside food scrap collection program. This program will run concurrently with the drop-off program for the time being. And I'll get more into that in a second. Food scrap collection program, curbside, just like the drop-off, is voluntary and free. You do not have to do it if you do not want to, and you don't have to pay anything. This is included in your services provided by the sanitation department of the city of Kingston. Just like phase 1, we will only be permitting food. No compostable materials, no compostable cutlery. And in a moment, I'll get to why that is. The difference in this phase, first, you will not have to drive anywhere with your food. We'll be picking it up from your home, and we will be providing a city-issued 5-gallon container, not a large tote, not a rolling tote. You're going to get a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket that will have a lid on it, and that is where you will place your food scraps. This bucket will be city-issued, which means just like your totes, you can't use it for something else. You can't move to Florida and take it with you. It is city-issued. Once you register, and registration is open now, you will get a digital welcome packet. We actually started back with phase 1 with a printed welcome packet. So if any of you were participating from the beginning, you got a printed version. We've stopped doing that to save paper, but you will get information about how this program works, where the product goes, a guide to reducing food waste, because frankly, if you're able to reduce food waste, we have to pick up less. If you're able to compost at home, we have to pick up less. And all of this is part of the larger process. You're also going to get a reminder about recycling in the city, because that's part of our larger solid waste strategy. An FAQ, which is 5 pages long of every question you might think about for this program. And you're going to get the lot combination for phase 1, because we know that when we do phase 2 with the collection, which will be once a week collection, you may have times in between that once a week collection that you want to get rid of food, and you can bring those still to the drop-off locations. So how does Kingston Organics Curbside work? First, you need to sign up online. If you don't want to sign up online, you can call me. You can come to my office. Well, you can come to City Hall and you can sign up online. We are having a public meeting this afternoon and also into the spring, and throughout the process, there will be ways to sign on. You can register online is the easiest, but you could also do it over the phone or in person. So when you register, you'll fill out a short registration form. This is found on engagekingston.com/Kingston-organics, and I'll have that information in just a moment. And when they'll have you fill out a couple pieces of information, including your address. Do you rent or own? How many people are in your family? These questions help inform us what the collection is going to be like. I should note that registration is now open, but we will not be starting to collect food until the spring of 2026. You will not get your container until the spring of 2026. And there's a few reasons for that, which I'll get into in a moment. If you are already registered for phase one and you've been participating, fantastic, but I still need you to register for phase two. It is not automatic that if you're registered for phase one, that you're automatically enrolled in phase two. I need all people that want to get a container to register. You may wonder, why are you asking me if I rent or own? I'm asking if you rent or own because this process of registration over the next 4 to 5 months is going to inform us where around the city folks are interested in where they're living for the collection. Depending on what the response is for registration will depend on where we send the trucks. If there's a wide enough distribution around the city, then we will be sending the trucks on every road. If there's not, we will only send them on the roads where people have registered for Kingston Organics, and they will look for the green bucket next to the curb. If you live in a multifamily and you have 10 families in your building that are registered and interested in participating, we will not be giving you 10 buckets for your building. We will work with you and your landlord or the owner of the building to provide a large rolling tote for the building so that each family doesn't need to have their own green bucket in that multifamily. Rather, everyone would use one container so it's not taking up a ton of space. All of this time for registration between now and spring is going to inform that process. Once we have decided upon the time when we're ready to launch, which will be spring of 26, and right now I should say our goal is to start collection in April of 2026. Prior to April, you will be issued the 5-gallon container. Depending on how many people register will depend on how that happens. We haven't decided yet if it's going to be something that you need to come and pick up or if it's going to be brought to your home. That's still to be determined. But collection won't start until 2026. How will it work once it starts? First, you will do source separation. That means at your home, you will separate out food from non-food. And you will do so in the space where the food is being produced, likely in your kitchen. You don't have to keep the green bucket in your kitchen. You could keep it in your garage. You could keep it outside. However you choose to get the food into the green bucket, that is your decision. We will not be providing a kitchen pail. So whatever you choose to hold your food scraps in your kitchen, that's on you. At my house, I use containers that are airtight. I know lots and lots of people, and I keep them on the counter. A lot of people keep their food scraps in the freezer, which is fine. You could put frozen food into the container. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's frozen or not. You can store it how you'd like in your house, and you could even store the green bucket in your house if you want to. That's up to you. But ultimately, you will place the green bucket with a lid on it that is provided curbside a few feet away from your trash tote on your garbage day. So at my house, I am on Wednesday garbage collection. I will put my food scraps container out on Wednesday, Tuesday night, or early Wednesday morning. You can put out your container if it's full. You can put it out if it only has one apple in it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be full. It just should not be over 50 pounds. Now that said, on average, a full 5-gallon container would be expected to be about 25 pounds worth of food. So you shouldn't have to worry about it. That said, we don't want it to be filled with liquid. It can't be filled with grease or any other large amounts of liquidy things, but it can be any kind of food. And I'll get to that in a moment as well. The Department of Public Works will be coming around and collecting those 5-gallon buckets. They will be removing the lid. They will be hand dumping those buckets into the back of a packer, and they will be putting the lid back on and placing it back next to your trash can. The reason I asked to put it a few feet away from your can is because our cans in most of the city are gathered by an automated arm truck, and we don't want that automated arm to bang into the green Kingston Organics container. So just put it slightly away. Then it will be brought to Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency, just like the drop-off food scraps, and made into compost. This is what it's going to look like. We have not purchased the green buckets yet, by the way. So it could be the case that I'm sitting here and saying it's going to be a green bucket, but it could be a white bucket. I don't know. And it might not look exactly like that. But as of now, this is what's in our thoughts, and this is what's in the funding source that we asked. So you'll put your food scraps into it, you'll put the lid on it, and you'll put it slightly away from your garbage can the day of your current garbage collection. That means if there's a holiday, you move it one day just like you do garbage collection. If there's a snow incident that delays garbage, it will also delay food scraps in Kingston Organics. To make sure that we are not increasing our greenhouse gas emissions with this process, you've heard me say that we're going to drive around a truck, a garbage packer. We need to in order to be able to contain the food scraps, but we didn't want to add another truck to the process. Currently for phase one, we didn't add any additional trucks or any additional staff. We have been operating the last 2.5 years of Kingston Organics phase one using existing equipment and personnel. However, with the new transition, we expect there to be an enormous response to this program. And so we have gotten Department of Environmental Conservation, Climate Smart Communities funding to support the purchase of 2 electric garbage trucks. So we have ordered them, and they don't expect to arrive until June, which is also why we are waiting till spring to start the collection. You'll notice, if you remember, I said that we're trying to start collection in April. We are, and we're going to hope to start collection using existing equipment to hold us over until June when we get the trucks. But we're really excited about this process. It will be our first heavy-duty vehicles for the City of Kingston municipal operations that we are transitioning to electric. We have been doing a fantastic job at transitioning the rest of our small duty and medium duty fleet, and this is our first dive into heavy duty. And why is this important? Because currently our garbage packers that drive around the city get 2 to 4 miles per gallon. 2 to 4 miles per gallon. That's not great. That's not even good. It's actually terrible. And so this will reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by using electric, and our municipality gets all of our electricity from green sources. So this is our way to help to transition by not making a worse situation. So what are we accepting? Food. What are we not accepting? Not food. It's that simple. You can put any kind of food in, whether it's gone bad in your refrigerator, whether it got moldy, whether you just didn't eat it, whether you bought too much, you had a huge party and you had some left over, whatever it is. All food scraps, meat and bones, dairy, all vegetables and fruits and their parts, breads and grains, eggs and shells, coffee grounds, tea bags, all food except pet food. No pet food, just human food can go into this container. What are we not accepting? Anything that's not food. Not accepting plastic, glass, or metal. No animal waste, no styrofoam, no packaging of any sorts, no bulk liquids, no coated paper, no chemicals, no waxed cardboard, no bulk grease. Yard waste will still be collected separately, which will go into separate trucks as it goes to our own transfer station in the City of Kingston. It's a separate stream of recycling that we manage. So you're not putting yard waste in there, including plants. House plants don't go in there. Fodder from your garden doesn't go in it. Just food. Importantly, we're not accepting any bags. No bags. So do not line you can line your bag with your container with a bag. No, you can't. You cannot line your container with a bag because when they dump it, the bag will fall out. So we will not allow any bags whatsoever, even compostable bags, in the process, and not compostable containers and cutlery. And you may be saying, Julie, why not? These things are compostable. You could have a huge impact if you do this. And that is true. However, our number one concern in the City of Kingston is health and safety. And we don't want contaminated food containers because then they will be rejected at Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency. If I go and I say, I think that this cup is compostable, it looks compostable, it's brown, I can rip it easily, and I throw that in the container and it's not compostable, or not certified compostable, then it will contaminate the load. Also, if people see other people putting things in, well, that person put a cup in there. Their compostable cup looks like my compostable cup, so they must be the same. I can put mine in there too. That is not true. Technically, BPI certified compostable containers could be composted in this system, but we are not permitting it, nor cutlery. There's too much room for contamination. There's too much misunderstanding and lack of accountability and lack of regulation on what compostable materials are, that at this phase, and probably into perpetuity, we will not be accepting compostable bags, containers, or cutlery. This is not only our decision, this is made in collaboration with Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency, who has very high standards for the product and the stream of material that they're receiving, because they are making a regulated organic compost that they are selling. And they are only permitted to have an incredibly small amount of contamination. So we cannot have any contamination in our system at all. And that is why we are not allowing anything but food. I see folks are putting their hands up. If you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A. I'll continue with the presentation and answer questions in the end. And if you have questions, which I'm sure you have lots of and will continue to, there is a very, very comprehensive frequently asked questions section, and you can click on this QR code. You can also go to engagekingston.com/kingston-organics, and that is where you will find frequently asked questions. Everything that you may be able to think of is probably addressed in those FAQs. And if you have other questions and people ask more, I'll continue to update the FAQs, and that's fine too. So how do you register? You can register right now. And already 252 families have, and we only launched it a few days ago. Ideally, you will have gotten a flyer in the mail, and this has the QR code on it as well. This is probably how you found out about this meeting, or maybe you found out about it in the media. But this flyer has a QR code that you can register right here by clicking on it. You can click on the QR code right now in the presentation, and you can go to engagekingston.com/kingston-organics. Note, when you do go to the website, there are two options there. One is just to register for Kingston Organics Phase 1. If you want to continue to or start diverting food scraps but do not want it at your house, you are welcome to register for just Phase 1. You can register now for the drop-off program and never participate in Phase 2. Also, if you want to register for Phase 2, meaning the curbside, you can register for that and use Phase 1. Use the drop-off. So we want people to have as many options as possible, including composting in your own backyard, which is a whole nother thing that we highly recommend so that we're keeping it as local as possible. So what's next for Kingston Organics and our timeline? Number 1, registration for Phase 1 is open and ongoing, and it will continue to be. I mentioned that it will be here for the foreseeable future. However, I should note that as part of this process, we will be evaluating the continued or discontinued use of the drop-off sites. Once we shift to curbside collection in spring of 2026, from spring of 26 through the end of 2026, we will be evaluating the volumes of food that are used in the drop-off sites. If we see over the 6 months, checking out multiple seasons, if we notice that either one or two or several of these sites have severely dropped off in volume, we may decide to consolidate and only offer a few sites. If we see that people are continuing to use them, that's fine. We will continue to keep them there. And we will evaluate that process as we go. Just as a reference, with those 11 sites, you might be wondering, I wonder what the distribution is like. Well, of the 1,200 people that currently participate or are enrolled in for Phase 1, a third, 30%, use one location, which is Forsyth Park. Forsyth Park is in Uptown Kingston. It is a well-known park, which is why I presume most people know about it. But they're located all around the city, but actually 30% of the folks participate in that one location. So we will be evaluating the use of phase one over the course of 2026. Collection is ongoing and open for that program. You can continue to use it all the way through at least till the end of 26. Registration for phase two is now open. It just started just a few days ago. Bucket distribution will be in spring. Curbside collection will start ideally in April. The evaluation of phase two and planning out the logistics of phase three will happen in the summer, fall of 26. So what is phase three? Phase three is commercial collection, curbside. Commercial collection, meaning that we will provide totes, rolling totes, larger totes, to commercial food waste generators like restaurants and bodegas and businesses that generate food waste. And we will be collecting that curbside as a city service. That gets much more complicated, although we acknowledge that the impact from commercial is and can be enormous based on volume. However, we're doing this in phases to ensure success. Phase one has been incredibly successful. We said, you know what? If people will take the time to source separate their food, put it in their vehicle, or walk it or bike it to a drop-off location with their own container, use a code to get into a container, and still do that with no incentive voluntarily, then they'll probably do it the right way. And you have. Now we're saying residential. If I get a container for my family, it's just my family that needs to understand what to put in that container. So maybe a couple people, maybe 4, 5, 6 people. And we think that that process will be a good way of understanding, hey, if people have chosen to do this voluntarily, they're probably going to do it the right way. We're not forcing anyone, we're not mandating anyone to do it. So we're saying people will self-select. With commercial, it will also be self-selection, but then we're going to be thinking of different components like pre-consumer content, like what's in the back of the house that's being chopped up, that needs to be thrown out. Post-consumer content, what happens at the restaurant when your plate is full and you have to scrape it off? Those are 2 locations and hundreds or thousands of people that will then be impacting the flow of this food stream. And locations for where those totes will go at restaurants. The fact that currently we don't pick up from all restaurants, so what will we do in terms of that process? There's a lot of logistics and strategy that needs to go into phase 3, but we are committed to it, and we just need some more time to develop it. So registration for phase 3, which is commercial, we anticipate to be in the winter between 2026 and 27, and launching that in 2027. That's my formal presentation. If you have any questions at all, I would love to take those questions now. I also want to let people know that this evening, November 20th, we will be having a live meeting in person at City Hall at 5 p.m. this evening. I will be giving this exact same presentation and also will be answering questions live. And you can always email organics@kingston-ny.gov. And when you do register at engagekingston.com/Kingston-organics, your registration automatically goes to Kingston or goes to organics@kingston-ny.gov. And so then we are tracking who has registered so far. As I mentioned just before this program, when I was just looking, 252 families have already registered, which is fantastic. Considering 650 families are registered for phase 1, 250 have already registered for phase 2, and we expect the numbers to continue to grow as we continue to get the word out and advertise and outreach about this program from now till spring. So thank you. I'm now going to open up for questions, and I'm going to call on Summer Smith, who is our communications director, to help to read the questions, and we will answer them. I also want to acknowledge Ryan Kuhn, the Deputy Superintendent for the Department of Public Works, who's on the phone and who has been designing this program side by side with me for the last several years. And if you have any questions about the Department of Public Works or their operation, he's available as well to answer any questions. So Summer, I'll kick it over to you to start the Q&A.
Hi, Julie. Hi, everyone. If you're having trouble finding the Q&A, you might have to click the .. more button at the bottom of your screen. If you click on that, you should be able to find the Q&A button, um, and type your question there. And then I am going to read the questions out loud to Julie, so she can answer them. So look for that Q&A question mark tab at the bottom of your screen, and that's where you can type your questions. And Julie, if you want to promote Ryan to a panelist, he should be able to hop on and say some words too.
Great. Ryan, I've made you co-host. You should be able to unmute and put on your video if you'd like. Okay.
We don't have any questions yet. If folks are having trouble putting questions in, maybe raise your hand and we'll see what we can do.
Oh, I see questions in my Q&A, so maybe they're only showing up for me.
Oh, okay.
I will look at those. Ryan is saying he's being restricted, so let's see. Let's see, Ryan. I'm not sure. So hopefully things will work out on your end. I think that maybe, all right. Okay, so here's some questions that have come in from the Q&A. One question says, some tea bag is made from plastic. I don't believe it is acceptable. And that is correct. And that is an asterisk that I should add to my presentation, which is that not all tea bags are biodegradable. And you're right. And so if it is plastic, it is not acceptable. And that actually goes against that tea bag question actually goes against me sitting here and saying it's just food that's accepted because it's technically food in a little bag. But if you can tell the difference and you know that it's plastic, it should not go into food scraps. If you can tell that it is compostable, then you can put it in. If you're questioning, you should throw it out. A second question says, I see coffee grounds on the acceptable list. Does that include coffee filters? Coffee filters were acceptable for phase 1. That is a great observation. And I would say that yes, we have accepted coffee filters in phase 1, and we would probably accept coffee filters in phase 2 as well. And generally coffee filters are compostable. Again, we want it to be we want there to be as minimally non-food as possible, but we do acknowledge that when you are utilizing a coffee filter, the filter sticks to the grounds, it all gets up in one big mush, and it's just easier to throw that whole thing into your food scraps. So yes, and I will probably update my list to include it to say add coffee filters. Thank you for bringing that up. The next question, are the containers locking in any way? We have raccoons that get into my home compost sometimes. I know the feeling. I have compost in my backyard. We seem to be simply just feeding the animals. But yes, the containers will be locking. So the current style that we're looking at is a sort of standard 5-gallon pail. We'll probably have it in mold label with a city seal on the side of it and Kingston Organic, so folks know this is not just a container I can use for my, baseballs or whatever. It will be city issued, and it will have a locking top, but not the super hard locking kind. So Ryan and I have been looking at options where it's like it locks, but it's very, very, very easy for a person to pull it off around the outside. It's not one that the laborers will need to use one of those lever things to pull it off, but it will lock on like a standard lid would so that animals will not get into it, or rain for that matter, because what we don't want to do is gather rain and wet food from folks, and then we have to pay for that when we're disposing of it as well. Next question is, not using a compostable bag will be a mess. What to do? We acknowledge that that is a concern that folks will have. We also acknowledge that we expect to have thousands of families participating, and that would be thousands of bags. And once some bags get into the system, that same thing happens that I mentioned before, which is folks might say, well, it wasn't clear whether this bag was compostable. I think that it is. That then becomes contamination. Or people might see bags being used and say, well, that person was using a bag, I'm using a bag. It doesn't matter what kind of bag I'm using. That becomes contamination. We have to limit the volume of non-food possible contamination in the process, so we have to not allow bags. The same way with phase one, we are not allowing bags. That said, you may be saying, well, how am I going to do this? However you choose to collect your food in your house, you should collect it in the same thing that you're using now. If you're not using something now, I would suggest buying a container, and there's lots and lots of types. I'm not promoting any certain type, but there are some that are designed just for food scraps where they have a filter on the top, and you can change the filter, and it's designed for that in vessel holding of that food scraps for the time being. As I mentioned, you could just go super simple. Just get an old coffee can and put it in the freezer, put it in the fridge, put it in a coffee can with a lid on it on the counter. I use an OXO container, which is clear and has a like button boop boop lid, and I pull that off, and I have two of those on my counter. I empty it once a week into my backyard compost. They also make compostable containers, and I have one here somewhere in one of my drawer, one of my cabinets. Here we go. As a model, this is a kind of a type that is available commercially that folks can buy to have it on their countertop, but we will not be providing any containers. Once you empty that food into the green bucket, or how you may be using it directly into there, we suggest that you clean out the bucket the same way that you might clean out a dirty garbage can. We will not be cleaning out your buckets for you. So the packer that's going to be driving around is not going to hose it out. It's not going to spray it out. It's not going to rinse it out. It will be put back down with whatever food residue is in there. So I would suggest that you clean it. You don't have to, but it's going to start to accumulate food. You could just wipe it out with a paper towel. You could, rinse it out and gather those any food scraps that are there and recompost them. But unfortunately, we are not, well, not even unfortunately, we are not allowing any bags in Kingston Organics Phase 2. The next question is, I signed up and have not received a packet. Is that coming in the spring? Yes, it is. So we are currently trying to understand if there's a way for us to do an automatic reply on Engage Kingston for those who have registered that says, you'll be getting a packet in the spring, but you should have not received anything at this point, frankly, if you've already registered. Maybe a thank you note from myself or my intern, Bianca. But come spring, you will be getting a digital version of the welcome packet, which again will be filled with lots of important information. Sorry. It will be filled with lots of important information, including what is and what cannot be included. Again, this slide deck, this presentation will be posted on Engage Kingston for anyone who wants to watch it or follow up with any questions. And a huge amount of FAQs are located there on the website. And you can find more information out at our meeting tonight also. I don't see any other questions right now, but if anyone has any others, you may raise your hand. I don't know if that is an option or not. But if I don't see any more hands, I will assume that I've answered as many questions as possible. And I want to thank you all for your interest. I hope that you continue to spread the word. Again, you should have gotten one of these flyers in the mail, and that will hopefully spur you to register, and your neighbors as well. We'll be actually doing this again probably as it gets closer. We'll be offering additional public programs as it gets closer. You can always reach out to the Department of Public Works or my office for more information. So thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for participating in your interest in Kingston Organics, and have a great day.